that we protect our environment so that we can use it as an asset to attract the type of business that we want to this part of the state. Now, we want to be sure that we don't allow things like fracking, that we don't allow coal ash ponds to simply remain in place. That's unacceptable. The health of our people needs to be a primary consideration of our legislature, and not the special interests of deep power, that type of a company. We need to make sure that people have healthy drinking water. So I think we do have to have, strict standards, and we have to hold companies accountable when they do cause harm. That's not incompatible with a healthy economy. That goes right along because, we're partnering with the industry. We all live here together. We only have this one world, and it's important that we preserve it for our children. I am not in favor of offshore drilling. I am in favor of green energy. I am in favor of solar energy. I am in favor of reinstating the renewable tax incentives that were done away with. So I think there are a lot of things, a lot of really positive things that we can do to attract industry, protect the environment, and those are the types of industry that we really need to be looking at. And these are the future types of industry, the healthy solar, wind power, green energy, and not fracking or offshore drilling. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards?
That's an unfair question. You're asking me to put 20 pounds in a 3-pound sack. Of course, a healthy, clean environment is critical to the economy, especially here in Western North Carolina. Our economy, this great land, is dependent on clean air, well-managed land, clean water, and the fact that folks want to come here to get away from some of the things that turn them away from the bigger cities that have not been as well cared for. You asked us to specifically address the issue of coal ash.
Coal ash cleanup and the offshore drilling.
And offshore drilling. There's no question that the accident with coal ash was disruptive in so many ways, but it was clearly that. It was an accident. It wasn't planned. It wasn't some contrived notion to go and destroy anybody's environment or drinking water. It was an accident. And the folks responsible should be held accountable. Anybody that damages our natural resources should be held accountable. There's no question about that. There's no secret that I have said I would support offshore drilling off the coast of North Carolina. We know that we know that those reserves are there. We know that that would help build an economy for North Carolina. There are a lot of things we still want to do in North Carolina. We still want to help teachers make more money. We still want to drive our economy. We want to provide for our citizens. That would help create an economy to do that. We know that we have to get less dependent on oil from overseas that is sold to us, where the profits are going to folks that clearly want to do us harm. We know that offshore drilling can take place in a safe manner as well.
Thank you. Mr. Bossert?
Well, let's start off by agreeing that science is real, that there is global climate change, and that human beings have had an awful lot to do with that global climate change. The science is real. Talking about coal ash next. I think I'd like to say that Duke should be held accountable for the coal ash cleanup. Liability should be set by the courts and not by politicians. North Carolina needs to protect from their North Carolina needs protecting from their legal and deliberately irresponsible behavior, not the other way around. We do not want another Flint, Michigan, and we don't want a Love Canal here in North Carolina. And it's clear to me that regulatory agencies didn't regulate, and that coal ash and the damage from coal ash has affected the water here in North Carolina under the protection of our governor. Yes, under the protection of our governor and his agencies. One size doesn't fit all, though, and I understand that. I understand why some people think we need to be drilling for oil offshore. I get that. I get it, and I get it clearly, but I am totally opposed to that. I'm opposed to it for any number of reasons. One, of course, is the mess that we have seen in the Gulf. And it is an expensive mess to clean up. It has cost people jobs. It has hurt the environment. And I don't believe that having a nice, clean beach makes a substitute for a clean environment and healthy food that we want to pull out of the Gulf. So I think that's another issue, too. We have to respect people's private property rights in North Carolina as well. I'm very concerned that in the case of fracking and lifting water resources out of the ground, we are empowering companies to go under our land and take our mining rights and the property rights that exist under our house from us, under the aegis of eminent domain. It just doesn't work. It's not democratic. We have a right in our communities to say we want fracking or we don't want fracking. And I'm upset, frankly, that our legislature has overruled that. We need to do better. We need to take care of our environment, and we need to keep America and North Carolina safe for our children and our grandchildren.
Thank you. So I've been reminded to remind you all to please refrain from applauding so we can get to lots of questions tonight. Thanks. Mr. Henson?
I'm a firm believer that we need to take care of the land that God has so richly blessed us with. To answer the question on offshore drilling and fracking, I'm for offshore drilling and I'm for fracking. There are right and wrong ways to do it. Accidents can happen, but there are safety measures in place to prevent them from happening. I agree that we need to become energy independent from countries around the world that either want to do America harm or paying those that do. I want to see companies invest in solar energy, invest in green energy, but right now the demand is for oil. And that's something that if North Carolina can be a leading force in getting America energy independent, then I'm all for it. But I absolutely agree that we need to take care of the environment. This is something that I'm going to pass on to my son, my grandchildren, your grandchildren. We absolutely need to take care of it. There's smart ways to do it, and regulating businesses out of business is not the way to do it.
Thank you.
The next question, we'll start with Mr. Edwards. In 2016, our legislators passed a law expanding the school voucher program by an extra $10 million and 2,000 students every year for 10 years. Spending will then plateau for the voucher program at nearly $135 million per year. Please explain your position on spending public funds to support private and/or religious schools.
First of all, I just want to call a point of order. I believe I answered the question first last time, and I think. You answered first. Okay, all right, my mistake. On the issue of school vouchers, I certainly support the use of school vouchers. I believe the language in the question might be somewhat false and misleading, because the funds that go to support school vouchers were paid for by the tax dollars of the folks that are sending their kids to those private schools. When we look at our rights as Americans, I think first we have to look at the idea of choice. Americans, North Carolinians, should have a choice in the schools that they want to send their kids to. They should have a choice in the manner of the way that they want their kids educated. I know that a lot of folks want to make that issue one of fiscal responsibility. The reality is, in Henderson County alone, there are about 2,500 kids that go to charter schools or homeschools. It would cost this county about $50 million to build the schools to send those kids to. And so there's an extremely high cost in trying to eliminate the freedom and liberty for folks to make a choice to send their kids to a charter school or a home school. and force them into a public school system where they obviously, for some reason, don't want to put their kids. I believe, and I had a school board member ask me yesterday what the answer was. I believe the answer is that public schools should work to be the school of choice. Public schools should work to produce an education and that would serve kids well when they graduate. Unfortunately, we have too many kids that leave the public school system that have to take remedial math and English in order to get into a community college system.
Thank you. Mr. Bossert?
It probably won't come as a surprise to any of you that I'm opposed to vouchers. On almost every level. First of all, these vouchers that we're talking about are supposed to be delivered right now, at least my understanding of the law is, to people who are living in poverty who want to make a choice in their public schools. I have no problem with people making choices in their schools or their school choices. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is taking our tax dollars, the tax dollars we all contribute, and giving those tax dollars to schools that have no accountability, zero accountability. They don't have to take, can I finish what I'm saying first?
Sure, I'm
Thank
not
you.
sure of the rule here, so I just want to make sure he's definitely.
Okay, very good. The schools are not, that was kind of disruptive, but that's okay. The schools have no accountability. They have no curriculum that's prescribed or controlled by the state of North Carolina. We have no way of knowing how those children are doing. Their teachers do not have to be licensed, and neither, for that matter, do their administrators or the people who run those schools, nor do their school boards have any accountability or boards of directors to anyone. We owe it to the children of North Carolina to give all of them the very best education we can. And we can do that best, I believe, by having our children in our public schools. Our public schools are competing well with private institutions. They always have. Testing shows that. Our kids are growing at a phenomenal rate. Our graduation rate is up in North Carolina. We are looking at some fine schools all across this community. Here in Henderson County in particular, the public schools are absolutely among the best in this state. Transylvania County, great schools. Buncombe County, where I work, my school in particular, are fantastic schools. And I can tell you, everybody, that vouchers are not in the best interest of North Carolina.
Mr. Edwards, do you have a rebuttal?
Certainly. First of all, will anybody sell me yours? I think I'm going to run out quick. All right, another failed attempt at humor. I have to say again that the tax money that goes to support these scholarship opportunity scholarships were paid for by the folks that are sending their kids to a charter school. The accountability is there. The parents of the kids that go to those schools are accountable for their child's education. It's not necessarily government's job to decide where and how somebody needs to be educated. It's one of the freedoms that we have in the United States, and we should be able to exercise this.
Mr. Bossert has a rebuttal.
I think we can go around on this one for a long time.
We're going to move on.
Real fast, too. I have to just give you a small analogy. I don't know if anybody here has had their house burned down or a fire in their house. I never have, but I still pay taxes to have the fire department serve my home. We all pay taxes for a lot of things that we don't necessarily use. I hope and pray none of us has had a fire in their home. But the fire department is an example of something that we support with our tax dollars that doesn't necessarily serve our personal interest, because we can go a whole lifetime without a fire. My point here is very simple, very simple. Our tax dollars go to support the general good, not just our individual household. Thank you.
Katie Hansen.
I'm waiting to see if anybody else was going to throw another card. As far as school vouchers go, this is one of the areas where I differ from my party. I'm a product of